Hello there everybody, it is me XFreezerBunny and welcome back to another Sims 4 speed building video. Today we are speed building a community lot venue called the Edwardian Beach Hotel. Okay, so this hotel is inspired by turn of the century American resort architecture. So a lot of this inspiration came from resorts that are from the East Coast, specifically like all the way from Louisiana to Nova Scotia. I looked at all those buildings to create this unique building in my own design. Okay, so anyway, this is actually so much fun to build. I had so much fun building it, and I actually took my time to build it and make it absolutely perfect, and I just went with it. You know, I just went all crazy and ambitious, and it turned out really well. I'm really proud of it. This community lot functions as either a restaurant, a coffee shop, or a bar. It's specifically designed to be either one of those three, but of course in The Sims 4 you guys can freely change it up into anything you like. So yeah, like I said, I had so much fun doing this build, and I just took my time furnishing it and just making every detail as perfect as I can. And I had so much fun that I didn't realize how long it was taking this build for me to finish, and I didn't realize how long it was until I finished recording everything. But yeah, so I didn't realize that it was really long. So what I had to do is actually had to split this speed build into multiple parts, which is the very first time that I'm doing a multiple part speed build. So the video that you guys are watching right now is the first part in a 2-part speed build on this Edwardian Beach Hotel. I just ended up deciding to make it 2 parts because I know that it would be easier to watch and for you guys to be more entertained by it. I didn't want to upload like an hour-long speed build because at the end of it, I had an hour-long speed build and I had no idea what to do with it. So for me, the best thing to do was just to split it into 2 parts. Okay, so this first part is basically us building the exterior and about half of the interior, and then the rest of the interior is on the second part, as well as the landscaping. So yeah, I'm really happy with how it turned out. Actually, a friend of mine on Facebook, Paul Hunsler, who is a French friend of mine, actually sent me some Victorian French architecture, especially in coastal regions of France, and I was really inspired by those. And then I came across an article online. I don't recall the website, but it's like a Pinterest-like website where they had like pictures of demolished Victorian buildings in the United States, and that also inspired me, specifically the beach hotel in somewhere Galveston, Texas. Yeah, so you guys will see some similarities to that, but of course I did put my own twist and spin into this venue to make it my own unique interpretation of what an Edwardian beach resort would look like. I just really like the idea of, like, you know, modesty and just imagining all the people visiting this resort to go in the beach fully clothed. You know, I just found that really entertaining, and I cannot wait to get more content for this, especially like some Victorian themed stuff, because even though we have a lot of like historical furniture already, I feel like clothing wise we need more. We can never, you know, have enough of the game anyway, so I'm just saying that. One really special feature that I did here is the central dome. I actually got that technique from Fischio. Studio Fischio, I believe, is this person's name in the Sims 4 gallery. But this person does some really amazing Sims builds, and I've been a fan of this person ever since The Sims 3. I believe this person tried to do the Wadeson manor, and then in The Sims 4 they have some of the most popular Sims 4 builds as well. So that dome is inspired by the way that they do domes, because in The Sims 4 you really couldn't make legit domes that look semicircular or even octagonal. You can just put roofs that are square, which is unfortunate. So I'm really looking forward to maybe having an expansion pack or a stuff pack that just expands on like the roofing options, because honestly roofing in The Sims 4 is probably one of the best we had in the series. The only gripe I have with it is the fact that we could not make octagonal or curved roofs, which is kind of sad because in The Sims 3, those came with the base game. Okay, so yeah. Anyway, you guys can see me really take a lot of time making the roof elaborate and all crazy and stuff. I did a really similar build, similar in a sense that the silhouette of it is kind of similar. Like there's a lot of attention on the central and on the sides of the roof. I did a build on the Thailand Royal Palace about a year ago, and it has a very similar kind of silhouette. But of course, that was an Oriental inspired build. This one is definitely very Americana style, turn of the century inspired. So definitely the roofing is very elaborate, and the bottom part of the building, like the structure of the building itself, isn't really that elaborate because I didn't feel like it had to. But given that this is a resort, there are balconies that wrap around the entire structure, and I felt like that was really special because literally the balconies are surrounding this whole thing, which also makes it look a lot bigger than it actually is. So yeah. One thing that I discovered by doing this build is actually the ability to make octagonal roofs look legit by just putting together some 45-degree angle and 90-degree angle roofs. Those are really awesome. And I got that technique from Simtastic Builder, who I have been loving ever since I started my YouTube channel. I've been a fan of this person. And Simtastic Builder does really good contemporary and even Victorian style builds. A very good designer and builder as well. So I admire him for that. So yeah, anyway, the back is really elaborate. Right now we're working on placing the wraparound balcony here. There's a lot of red. I don't know why, but red and white stripes just are very reminiscent of that kind of East Coast architecture. Really interesting tidbit of personal information. When I was in high school a couple of years ago, my dad gave me a picture book of Nova Scotia, and I fell in love with like that kind of autumnal kind of environment and just very beautiful colonial architecture, and also very colorful as well. Lots of reds, lots of whites and greens and blues, very vibrant colors. And as a visual person, you know, as a self-proclaimed artist, that picture book literally was so much fun to look at. I didn't even read it that much. I just looked at it and just was so inspired by, you know, all the different architecture and stuff. So yeah. Still working on the wraparound balcony. So you guys can see that I'm really taking my time to make everything perfect and properly, like, how can I say it? Like, properly planned out. You know, I wanted the building to look like it had a lot of thought put into it. So very little of the actual building itself, or like very little of the actual lot itself, is random. Everything is specifically placed to, you know, to convey a specific, you know, like look that I was going for. Yeah, I also really like these end pieces of the roof. I don't know why, but I just really like using the octagonal thing that I learned from, you know, that I learned from Simtastic Builder. I just really like using that technique, to kind of just make the roof a little bit more dynamic and more interesting to look at. So yeah, right here we are doing that, and yeah, really nice. I like how those roofs actually connect together, and it was really fun. I feel like this roofing is very special because I haven't seen that many people try to do it. I think, well, you know, I haven't seen that many people try to do it anyway, so yeah. Also, I'm going to talk about symmetry a little bit. The symmetry of this building is crazy. If you look at it, you know, from really fast, you guys will notice that there is a lot of symmetry. But if you actually take the time to kind of look at the building slowly, you'll see that there's very little actual symmetry going on. It just looks symmetrical, but, you know, it's not 100% symmetrical. I did add a couple of things to break off the symmetry. I don't know. Honestly, I don't have any issues with symmetry. I feel like symmetry conveys the idea that you put a lot of thought into the building, and I really, really like it. Probably also because that I am very much inspired by classical architecture, and classical ideas put a lot of emphasis on symmetry and stuff like that. Either way, those are my personal preference. Nevertheless, this venue looks like it's very symmetrical, but it really isn't. I did incorporate a lot of things to break the symmetry. Anyway, if you agree or disagree with my ideas regarding symmetry, just feel free to disagree. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with having a different opinion in my book, okay? So these pinnacles are so beautiful. I love using those, and I put those on the top of each dome. I believe those came with Get Together, and they just really complete the look and make it look really grand and all that good stuff. Okay, so we're currently adding one of the things that I added to break the symmetry, which is this kind of bay window. I don't know. I'm going to call it like a sunroom or like a solarium. I think that's probably the technical term for this type of room. But yeah, solarium is basically where you would go to get some sunlight indoors. So there's like a lot of glass. There's sometimes even like a glass roof or something. But I felt like that would be really awesome to include, because I feel like those are a really common feature in Edwardian architecture as well. So yeah. Also, when I was building this part, I was watching the final episode of the last season of Downton Abbey. I believe, episode 8 of season 6. I'm not sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not really sure. But it's the one where Mary kind of, spoiler alert. It's the one where Mary kind of ruins Edith's engagement with this one guy by telling this one guy that Edith is already pregnant. Already has a child actually with another man. And also they did make up in the end, and it's the part where what's his name? Matthew Good. I don't remember his character in Downton Abbey, but Matthew Good and Michelle Dockery finally get married, and Mary marries Lady Mary Crawley. She marries her second husband, and they kind of live happily ever after. I'd like to think of this episode as the second to the last episode of Downton Abbey, because the series did continue after this episode by having a final episode in the Christmas special. So yeah. Right now we are currently building the pool bar, building or structure, whatever. I don't know what to call it. But this is kind of a gazebo, an enclosed gazebo that has a bar. The bar facility is located here, and it's also built right next to the pool. That's why I decided to put a bar into it, because I felt like, people who are relaxing on the pool, especially at night, might want to have a drink or two or whatever. So yeah, once again, I tried to be very consistent with the architecture. Really, really like those, octagonal things that I did. Really, really awesome. I might do that a little bit more often in future builds as well. But yeah, this thing, I felt like really kind of complemented the building without overshadowing it. It is a minor structure, but I feel like it is a really, really good building by itself individually. So yeah. Also, I was able to use those windows that came with Romantic Garden. They are so beautiful. I love those windows like to death. Like, I love them so much. One of my favorite windows, because they look really great. And not only that, they don't just look great, they also have great proportions as well. I like the semicircular arch, and I like the fact that they don't show the wall. It's like just one window pane, and then poof, it's all light, which I really, really like. I feel like it would be great to use in building like maybe classical themed greenhouses and things like that. I only wish that those windows came in all 3 different wall levels, because as much as I would like those windows, as much as I would like to use those windows all the time, I could only use them in middle-sized walls, because if I used them in other walls, they would just look weird and stuff. So yeah. And also these windows that I'm putting on the corner as accents looks very American to me. Yeah, so I just plop them there because they remind me a lot of Americana colonial architecture as well. And my other kind of social media or whatever. I did a build a really long time ago in 2012 on an antebellum themed home inspired by a house in Louisiana. I don't recall the house, but it's a house that they used in Interview with a Vampire. It's really, really famous. I just don't recall the name of it. At that time, it didn't have a YouTube yet, but I did upload my content on Mod The Sims, and you guys can still see them right now. So if you're interested to see some of the things that I were working on before doing YouTube, then go to Mod The Sims and you will see that I shared some of my creations over there. I also have some creations in The Sims 3 Exchange, so yay. Okay, right now it looks like we are working on the interiors. Once again, the interior design, I kept it very classical and very luxurious. This space that we're working on right now is going to be the main lobby, or reception area or check-in area, whatever. It's basically the first room that the Sims who are staying at the hotel will go to. And it's very, very grand. It's 2 stories tall, very, very tall, really, really high ceiling. It even has like an overlooking balcony to it. And, it's filled with some really luxurious and amazing furniture. And I threw in some columns over here on each side of this octagonal, balcony area, just to give it a little bit more grandeur and, you know, just to elevate the space even more. So my initial idea for this was to create a color scheme that was very red to kind of keep it consistent with the color schemes that I had on the outside. But it felt wrong to me. I didn't really like how much red I had. So you guys can see me actually change this later on. A little bit later on in the video, I will change the color scheme into a more kind of cream based. I feel like I'm ordering a coffee from Starbucks. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, but the color scheme is cream, mainly cream, and like, you know, off-whites and things like that. Because I feel like that is such a relaxing color, you know. I feel like, you know, beach destinations during the Edwardian period would probably have that same color scheme anyway. And I love these chairs, these set of sofas that came with the base game. I love how they have the option to have a stripe. I really, really like the stripes that they have in particular because they are not the same size and they're not the same width and they're even not the same color, but I really, really like the stripes that they had. I felt like they look very, very expensive and elegant. And in this build, I actually do this for the first time in this build. I did some piling up of some decorative plants over here. And what I did is literally had a seizure there. No, but what I did is I put them together using the move objects cheat to kind of make it look like a more elaborate flower arrangements, because you know what, I think we have great flower arrangements in The Sims 4, but I feel like we need some really, really big ones and big ones that are not tropical, because we have a bunch of tropical themed ones, but we need ones that are more boreal or more, you know, temperate ones, you know, just I'm so specifically what I want, right? But you know what? If you're gonna complain anyway, just, you know, I feel like it's better to complain knowing what you want rather than just complaining about things and not having any clue what you want in exchange. You know, because some people are just like that, you know, some people just like to hate on things and they don't even know what they want themselves. So yeah. I also do this quite a bit in this build where I kind of cluster these 2 portraits together. So every time I put a portrait of this lady, I always put a portrait of this man to kind of counterbalance it. And yeah, just to add some asymmetry, you guys can see me actually place in some items that are not on either side, just, you know, so you know either side has different items and stuff. Yeah, because at this point I began to realize how much you guys would probably hate this venue if it was all symmetrical. So I did incorporate some objects to break the symmetry, such as this grand piano. Honestly, the grand piano doesn't feel as special in The Sims 4 as it did in previous iterations of the game. Probably because the grand piano in The Sims 4 came with the base game. That's why I always keep forgetting it. That's my point, you know. I always keep forgetting it for some strange reason. Which is sad, because when the grand piano came out for The Sims 2, I was obsessed. It literally had a room of its own in my Sims 2 builds. Unfortunately, I don't feel the same in The Sims 4. We probably need a couple more interactions with it, so yeah. And here I am making a familiar technique where I enlarge a chandelier and put it together with some smaller ones of the same design, and it would look like a really, really large singular chandelier. I like that. I actually am really, really happy with how that chandelier looks. I feel like it really brings together, the whole space, especially since it's a 2-story space. I feel like it really links all the different levels together. And this is where I begin to change the color of this room, which is mainly inspired by the pinstripes on the sofa, as well as the color schemes that I chose on the drapes, actually. So I actually chose kind of a cream colored curtain, and I'm like, okay, this color is actually very, very pretty. Why not just use the color scheme all throughout this room? And I actually fell in love with it. I really, really liked it, so I went with it. And then just placing in some additional wall detail to kind of make it look very classical and really detailed. I feel like if you want to make things luxurious, just go ahead and do the extra effort to make it look really, really detailed. And I think that's one way to kind of make things look a lot more expensive, is that you put a lot of detail into it, not just putting random expensive items. So yeah, anyway, I'm not sure what I'm talking about here, but we are working on the grand staircase, which is grand staircase and the only staircase, actually. I probably went to grab some water. That's why it's pausing right here. So I ran to my kitchen to grab some water because I probably got thirsty. Anyway, this is the grand staircase. Nothing too crazy about it, to be honest. I wanted to make it a little bit grander, but I didn't have anywhere to put the staircase other than that place. So the staircase is just a means to go to the second floor anyway, so awesome. And then continuing on with some more decoration. Let's see here. Oh yeah, this is where we are beginning to work on the restaurant. So like I said when we began this video, this community lot venue is specifically designed to either be a restaurant, cafe, or a bar. If you download this, you can go ahead and actually change it into a restaurant or a cafe, and it will have all the required items. If you want to change this into a bar, though, you might have to add a TV and a stereo, because I chose not to add those because they would modernize the place, and I really didn't want to put any stereo or TV because they were kind of eyesores, to be honest. We have these luxurious historical themed items, and then there's just a random flat screen TV and like a radio, which I really didn't like because I felt like it was kind of I felt like it broke the character of the building, even though there was a gramophone type of stereo, but I just really didn't like how it looked. Maybe when we get gramophones or something, and maybe when we get like some retro looking TVs, that would be awesome. I would love to have like a TV that has like I'd love to have a TV that's like inside of a cupboard. That would be amazing, because that's what they do in hotels, right? They put TVs in cupboards because sometimes TVs aren't relaxing to look at. So yeah. Anyway, let's see here. The color scheme for this restaurant area, it's actually kind of a very grayish white for the base color, and then the accent colors are green. You guys will see me, there we go, we're starting to change it into a nice green color, really, really nice. And that color green will continue on with the other furnishing items as well. I believe I'll put some green sofas and chairs, and also the chandeliers are changed into green. And you guys can also see me put together the chandeliers in clusters as well. I really like that. For the restaurant, I used tables that had linen over them. Like I used tables that had some actual tablecloths because I felt like they were a great choice. Every time I see historical dramas, I always look at, things in detail. And I believe there was one episode of Downton Abbey where Mary kind of ate at like a restaurant with a guy, and I just wanted to kind of recreate that in this restaurant, and I feel like it was really successful. You know, it felt it felt very luxurious, and it felt very Edwardian appropriate. Awesome. And yes, there's a lot of symmetry. Hopefully you guys don't riot in the comments, but I don't know. I just really like the symmetry, to be honest, and I'm gonna stop justifying it because I'm happy the way this came out. So yeah. I also went the extra effort to actually change the menu and some of the staff outfits. So this is a seafood restaurant. It is, after all, the Edwardian Beach Hotel. So I felt like making a seafood restaurant was kind of appropriate. There is lobster thermidor. So, you know, if they want classier seafood, they can choose to order the most expensive one, which is lobster thermidor. Another thing that I added to make this a little bit more of an elevated, luxurious restaurant is actually place not one, but 2 waiter stations. Now, I don't have any idea how the waiters spawn in this. I don't think it has anything to do with the waiter stations, but I felt like having those waiter stations there just make this a lot more luxurious, okay? So we are working on the first out of 2 kind of public bathrooms here on the 2nd floor. There are additional bathrooms on the upper floor for the guest rooms, but for the ground level, we have 2 guest bathrooms. And then we are also working on the kitchen area, which actually uses a lot of black, surprisingly. I don't know why. I just wanted to tie in the color scheme with the tiles over there. And those black and white tiles are so awesome. I always wanted to use those in my other builds, but I never had the opportunity to do so because those black and whites are just so they're just so strong and intense. I felt like they overpowered my other builds, but since this is a very luxurious looking place, I felt like it was an appropriate addition. And of course, adding in some kitchen detail as well. I love that hanging pot holder, you know, cooking pot holder, wink wink, that hanging pot holder that actually comes in 3 different heights, and I do appreciate that. I will give that to the Sims 4 team for thinking about, you know, different levels for those little details, which I really appreciate. So the pot holders come in a short, medium, and high wall option. I really appreciate them for that. I wish those would also apply to other items as well, like, you know, curtains, for example, actually those are on curtains. Yes, kudos to the Sims 4 because our curtains also are different levels, so that's really awesome. But yeah, they did put a lot of effort into it. I think the one thing that could really make the Sims 4 even more awesome is just more items and more interactions. And I'm looking forward to the new expansion packs that are going to be announced in the future. So yeah. The bathrooms over here are literally like, I'm literally like freaking obsessing over the bathrooms because I could not get the color scheme right. The thing is, the metal gold that I used as accents, they really don't match. Like the gold on the sink and the gold on the toilet and the gold on the toilet rack did not match at all. So what I did is actually just remove some of those items that didn't match, and that's why many of the bathrooms are very sparsely furnished, because some of the metals are just not the same. You know, it's not the same. And I know that's a really, you know, specific complaint, but it's just one of those things that really peeves me a lot, is when the minor details are not, you know, are just not perfect. I told you guys that I was obsessing about making this absolutely perfect. That's probably why it took me a really long time to build. And definitely, I have done like dozens and dozens and dozens of speed builds over 2 Sims games, and this is definitely my longest speed build ever. That's why it merits 2 videos for you guys. So yeah. Hopefully you guys are okay with having 2 speed builds. I'm totally fine with it. You know, I tried to avoid it before because, you know, my idea is that if I can fit a build into one video, then I'm gonna do it. But this time it just really wasn't the practical choice. So yeah. And then over here, we are working on the coffee shop, which is, honestly, personally, coffee shops are one of my favorite community lots in real life. I love going to Starbucks. I know I'm so basic. I love hanging out at coffee shops with my friends, you know, playing cards. Yes, we play cards in coffee shops, whatever. So anyway, the color scheme for this room is, of course, inspired by coffee. That's why there's a lot of browns, and I don't know why, but I decided to make this also somewhat of a library as well. There's no actual library in the lot, but this is gonna serve as kind of the library area, I guess, because I did throw in a couple of bookshelves over here, which I really liked. I like those bookshelves that need to be unlocked. I actually used a lot of items that need to be unlocked, but you know, they're available in build mode for free. So yeah. I felt like they were a really, really good choice. They looked very Edwardian as well. I love how the books are enclosed behind like a cabinet and stuff. So yeah. And then once again, doing the whole thing with the chandeliers, I really just like it. And yeah, it looks like I am just figuring out how to change this into a legit coffee shop. I will change the venue type based on what I'm working on. So, you know, when I was working on it as a restaurant, I changed it into a restaurant. When I was working on it as a coffee shop, I changed it into a cafe. And when I work on it as a bar, I will change it into a bar just to make sure that all the different requirements are properly provided for. So yeah. And I really, really like this place. You know, every time you go to a hotel, you always expect to have, you know, maybe breakfast, lunch, or dinner in that hotel. So, you know, this is probably a perfect place to have breakfast or maybe even like a snack, you know, like an afternoon snack or afternoon tea, even though this is coffee and not tea. But yeah, and also probably, you know, we can have like a breakfast buffet at the seafood restaurant. You guys can just really go ahead and go for it, whatever your Sims want to. They will definitely find some things to do in this venue, which is great, you know, because sometimes I don't like to go from one venue to another in my games. So, yeah, I do prefer to just stay in one venue and just do everything I can in that area, just because I honestly just hate loading screens. I just do not love the loading screens. I really don't. So as much as I can, I try to stay in my Sims' homes. If I really have to go somewhere, then I just go there and just go straight home. Unfortunately, that's kind of the consequence, I guess, that we get from having loading screens, is that we just really spend a lot of time indoors. And I noticed that The Sims is probably, like, EA is probably aware of it. That's why some of the items that, like, some of the stuff packs that we've been getting are kind of catered for more house-related activities, you know? We have romantic garden, cool kitchen, perfect patio, what else? What's the latest one with like the oh my gosh, I cannot remember the latest one with like the bird feeder and the water slide. Yeah, you guys got what I mean. But yeah, it's like all like garden related stuff. So yeah. Anyway, it's July. Actually, it's the end of July. So I want to wish you guys a happy summer. I know that a lot of you guys are spending a lot of time probably vacationing or at home, binge watching YouTube videos that you guys didn't get to watch while you were having exams and stuff. But good thing for you guys for having a summer break, because my summer is about to end. So whatever. Actually, no, it's about to begin, but my vacation only lasts for a couple of weeks, like 2 weeks. Unfortunately, that's just how college works. So, yeah, I'm a little bit jealous of you guys who get a couple of weeks off of school. I used to love summer vacation when I was in elementary school. Unfortunately, it's different now that I'm in college. Anyway, it looks like we are also working on the second floor over here, placing in some windows. The windows are actually not symmetrical. You guys will see that each window is different in each room somewhat, which is great because that means that I can do it without kind of without compromising the look on the outside, because the balconies actually cover up the windows and the windows aren't so obvious looking. So, I was able to make the windows asymmetrical in accordance to all the different, rooms that had to be provided windows for, I guess. You know what? I recently just had an exam in my building technology and building utilities class, and I just discovered that apparently each room has to have at least 10% window openings in my country's building code. I'm not sure in your guys' countries, but apparently each room, especially like for residential areas and schools as well, need to have like 10% window openings. I'm not sure, whatever. It might be different in other countries, but that's just one thing that I learned. So these two guest rooms over here are almost identical in plan, but they're very different in furnishing. They have different furnitures in them. They also have a slightly different furniture layout as well. So this hotel has a total of 3 guest rooms, and yeah, I know, only 3 guest rooms, right? The guest rooms are very grand and very rich looking though, so nothing to worry about there. I expect the people to stay here would probably be like millionaires, like heiresses, railway barons and things like that, so, or people like that, so. Yeah. You know what's really funny though is that most of this layout I will actually change later on because I just was not in love with it. The final layout that I do for this room is really, really awesome. I'm really, really proud of it. But right now it feels a little bit stiff. And I realized that when I begin furnishing the other room, and I'm just like, okay, this blue room is really not awesome in my opinion, so I will actually change almost the entire layout. So this is kind of a waste of this is kind of like unnecessary footage that I'm showing to you guys, but I'm still showing it to you guys just to show you how much things change or when I'm building it, because you can change your mind and you shouldn't be afraid to do so. So, yeah, you know what? It looks like this speed build, the first part of the speed build is coming to an end. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up my commentary right here. Once again, watch out for the second part of this 2-part speed build coming up immediately after this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. You all have an awesome, awesome, awesome day, and I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.